Gem International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond-producing country in Africa, located next to the fourth largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109-carat diamond, recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior, with a proven operator and finance team. Gem International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
We're chatting with Martyn Element. Martyn is a corporate advisor who focuses on sourcing and pursuing new business ventures. Welcome back to the show, Martyn.
Welcome, listeners. Welcome to everybody to a very interesting time. Yet again, we're still very much in a rocking and rolling, topsy-turvy, interesting market we have going here at the moment. And of course, here in Vancouver, thousands showed up for the arrival of the Royals, Kate and William, to shake hands at Jack Pool Plaza. You were amongst them, Martyn. I was, and my little boy was up on my shoulders, and we could have like two people in front of us, but that was it. And William was very much there, shaking hands and talking to people. And my 5-year-old, I said, Michael, I said, you can see him. I said, that's a real prince, Michael. I said, Michael, he's a prince. And then more than two or three people around me shouted out, yes. And he's not a Disneyland prince. He's a real prince, you know. So all the people were in the same frame of mind I was. So it was a very exciting, very fun time. And I noticed he took a lot of time to stop. It wasn't just sort of rushing off. They certainly took their time shaking a lot of hands and talking to people. And as we were remarking just before we came on, Kate took one side of the cordoned off area, and he took the other. And it was. I remember I did that because my first memory as a child, was when I was 5 years of age. I went to see the Queen close to where I lived, and it was my first. It was about 4 actually, 4.5, and it was my first actual memory of anything, because I got lost and I ended up getting put up on people's shoulders. But so it was quite a meaningful visit, because I thought, well, my little boy is a little bit older than I was, but I wonder, as the years go by, he'll remember that vividly, I'm sure. Well, Martyn, of course, the memories we like to talk about are what you do in the business world. What's really caught your attention? Well, I'm trying to keep the show original, obviously, and very, very topical and very, very interesting. And I have, been spending a lot of time with some of these lithium situations. And what I'm finding is an education, as I do. When these things come along, and what I'm seeing is that it's, as it's happening, evolution is that Argentina, and yes, I know some of these listeners are more sophisticated and say, well, we all know this, Martyn, but Argentina is definitely becoming the area for investors, it would seem, and for the place to be, but of course, because of that, the prices of the real estate, because so much of it, of course, that's all it is at this time, real estate. It's not a mine, it's not a discovery, it's just getting a piece of property in the area where there is some major mines or there is some showings of lithium. And those prices have gone 3-4 times in the last 2-3 months. A property that was perhaps selling for $2,000 a hectare is now $8,000 a hectare. And that's the game on. And the other thing I'm hearing more and more about is particularly a deal that we mentioned briefly, Millennia Lithium is now has kept on going in value, but they've put a public statement out to say it'll be 2 to 3 years before they actually get into production. But nobody really gets worried about that length of time, because they're saying that the finished product will be needed that much more in 2 or 3 or 4 years' time. So there's no big problem with that. And lithium still seems to be the market darling at the moment. How long that's going to last, I don't know. But as I've said many times before, with lithium, I think the demand is going to be there. It'll come, it'll go. And there's quite a lot of these plays are in Chile. But, I mean, Chile as a government seems to have a naughty word, but a cartel going on to a great degree with the current producers of lithium in Chile. And they haven't given out any mining license, I believe, since 2008. But some of these deals have significant holdings down in the country of Chile. And obviously they're banking and hoping that the government is going to open up and allow some of these companies that have holdings in that market within the country to take advantage in some of the stocks. Like Wealth is one of those companies that's done very well over the last couple of weeks, I think. So it's interesting to see that the game is still very much there. The gold stocks sat back over the last 2 weeks since I was on probably slightly before that, because the gold price started to slump. But, you know, the good old American government there, they decided they're not raising the interest rates, and it's game on again, and everybody rushes back into gold. The price goes right back to where almost where it came from, the sort of 1350. And also the Trump factor is starting to show its paces again, because it looked for a while that Hillary was over the line, and, you know, Trump was going to be defeated. And now, at the end of September, it shows that they're very close to neck and neck again. And consequently, there's a lot of fear, and fear drives people to take gold on, I believe, and that you've got that gold speculation beginning again in earnest. The other thing I've just read the interesting goings on of the big boys, the Googles, and they're looking to purchase the Twitter. And you know, we all judge these things ourselves, and Twitter just doesn't seem to be. I mean, I'm not in the right circle to be saying this, but none of my daughters who are in the circles of the technology age, I never hear them mentioning Twitter. I don't even know if they have Twitter accounts. Well, I think that story is getting weaker, and I think it needs a revamp, and everybody's chasing that. Facebook is in a lot of trouble because they're such a big corporation, but they've been telling some porky pies, it seems, to their advertisers with their videos on Facebook. Well, if you ask me to name an advertising video on Facebook, I like Facebook. I'm not I quite enjoy it because it keeps me in touch with people all over the world. Some of them I haven't seen for 20 or 30 years, and my own daughters, and not that they seem to be that active on Facebook anymore, but, you know, they said that they've been selling the advertisers that people spend time on their ads, but they did it for as short a time as 3 seconds. And I think there's been some exaggerations that have gone on. Now there's a heck of a fight with the advertisers on Facebook saying that you've artificially, told stories about, we're paying, because Facebook, of course, is the second biggest after Google, I think, for the advertising on the internet. So we're talking gazillions and gazillions of dollars here, and people get quite annoyed with those things. But I'm losing my track here. But the interesting things also are that we like on the show here, and Jim likes it, and I particularly like it, is the car, these driverless cars. And I was listening to a show just the other day that they said, what happens if the car's going down a narrow road, and between parked cars on either side, a child runs out, or perhaps that's not the right description actually. There's a road and it's got people walking on the pavements on either side, and a child runs out from the crowd. Now, does the car swerve from the child, or does it swerve and go into the crowds that are walking on the pavement? These are horrible things to think about. But but Jim was saying he thinks the computers on these cars are that much faster than the human anyway, and so there's a lot of things there. But it's the conscience of the car. It's not just the mechanic of seeing these problems. So these are things I haven't even thought about. But we're talking 10 years time or 8 years time, and the American government now is starting to put some major legislation into these driverless cars, because so far it's been very hit and miss. But that's all coming into place, and it'll be interesting to see how disruptive that is for the car world when these laws come into place.
They'll have to change the impaired driving law in BC. Right now, if you get into your car and you're impaired, you're charged with care and control, even though you didn't start up the car. Well, what if you get into your driverless car and you intend to have it drive you home and you don't want to touch the wheel, you're in the back seat? They could still charge you with care and control right now.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm sure the cars will be, the interiors of the car, not only with the lighting, as we've talked about in the past, be, unbelievable and all those things, but I'm sure the sensitivity to smell and things like alcohol on your breath, I mean, there'll be apparatus within the car that'll have a hand in that, because we're talking futuristic here, but I think it's very much...
4 years, just 4 years. Tokyo plans to have driverless taxis when they host the Olympics in 2020, well, so just 4 years, Martyn.
Now, you said that before. That's an amazing stat.
Well, the Japanese are the masters of the robots. We'll have more with Martyn Element right after the break.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Martyn Element. Martyn, Britain we saw the little drop in the markets 2 days after the Brexit vote, then it bounced back up. The people in Britain, I think, are embracing it now. They know that they have to go their own way. And now Berlin is talking tough. They say if the Brits want to get down and nasty with Brexit, well, then they plan to get down and nasty as well.
Well, it is a real brew, isn't it? It's something, it's brewing. And of course, what you need to think it through, or what we don't realize until you think about it, is that 70% of the population of central London or the London area all voted to stay in. And in that 70%, you've got some of the most powerful publications in the financial world on the planet, like the Financial Times. And there's been a lot of, as much as, the Times tries to be a very accurate business publication, there's been a lot of insinuations and suggesting that the Financial Times is still very pro staying in. And as soon as they get a whiff of fanning the flames that there's going to be problems with the upper house of Commons, that they're going to be able to force there to be another election, or there's any little crack in the seam, it seems that the Financial Times, more often than not, gets on its horse very quickly. I can't comment on the Economist. I'm not really an Economist reader, I must admit, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's a similar scenario. So you've got the scribes that actually write these stories, and they're very quick to pick up the pen and say, oh yes, there's probably a very good chance of a second vote. But we'll see what happens. But I think that you're right, Jim, at the moment, and I was just beginning to read, and no, listeners, I didn't get to read it this morning. There's a big article in this weekend's F&T saying that, so here we are, the British pound has gone down, and, the immediate reaction is, oh, it's great for industry, but what is it really going to mean in the longer term that the pound is significantly down for industry, and is it going to help, hinder? And I haven't really got into depth on the article, but there's certain things that have happened since the Brexit, of course, and it'll be very interesting to see how it unfolds. And the other criticisms is that Cameron, I think it was you that said it to me, or somebody said it to me, he didn't have a plan. He didn't have a plan that if it was voted to leave, and that was part of his problem. And of course, he's not only resigned, he's completely trying to get out of politics altogether, really getting out of things, and it's very sad, because I think overall his report book looks very good for the years that he was in power. But now, because of the negativity of him leaving so quickly, and it would appear, with the tail between the legs almost, that he's coming in for very severe criticism, and people are remembering him for the things that didn't go right rather than all the good things that he was involved with. So and May, the replacement for the Prime Minister, been left holding the bag, so to speak, and now she's got to make up for lost time trying to come up with a decent plan. So it all involves money and economics and stock markets, absolutely, and it'll be very interesting to see how it all plays out in the coming months, and years. But they are saying that spring of 2017, the buttons are going to be pushed in a major way of leaving. So we'll have to see if Germany wants that before, if they can. But Germany has its own problems from a financial and from an involvement as a country, because the right is rising up very, very, very strong in Germany at the moment. And we've all seen evidence of how strong the right is coming in France as well. And, it'll be very interesting to see if that transpires, or it already has in some local elections in Germany. What does the right mean for the financial world? Well, I don't have the answer to that, but it's just it's where politics starts to cross over into the world of finance. But it all, what it really points to, of course, if you get right down to it, is uncertainty. And uncertainty causes people to run to things for security, and that traditionally has been the US dollar, and more recently would appear to be the metals. And, the Doug Caseys of the world and some of the other soothsayers, they're calling for a $2,000 very, very, very soon. And it'll be interesting to see whether they're right or wrong, but the fact that they're saying it causes people to think it, and next thing you know, they say, well, some friends of mine sold their home right at the top in over on the west side here in Vancouver, and now they've ended up with about $4 million in cash. They bought another place, a smaller condominium place. They were at that age, and they're asking me, well, what are we going to do with this $4 million? Well, I did tell them about 2 months ago. I said I'm not an advisor in that capacity. I advise businesses and my thoughts, but I said, it wouldn't do any harm to have a certain percentage in gold. And if they'd done that, I think they probably would have been quite off at the time I mentioned it. But very, very, very difficult what to do with the other 90%, I can tell you, these uncertain times we're in.
Martyn, Theresa May, the new British Prime Minister, appointed Boris Johnson as the minister in charge of dealing with Brexit. Is he the right man for the choice? I mean, he was pro-Brexit, I believe. Boris is going to be dealing with people that he badmouthed. Quite frankly.
I think that Boris don't underestimate him. You judge a man by his actions, and he plays this card of being a little bit of a buffoon, and buffoon he may be, and I think we saw him in all his glory at the Olympics. If you were to give him a ticking the boxes and giving him a grade of his performance as the mayor of London, I think you'd be hard pressed not to give him some really good grades during that time, really good grades. And I think running the city of London at that level is no easy choice. And I think that there were some comments made by the scribes that they thought that Boris Johnson, is he going to be able to cope with the other foreign ministers of Europe? Well, guess what? Not only will he be able to cope with them, in my opinion, I think some of them will find out that he's no pussycat and he's no buffoon. No, I think Boris shouldn't be underestimated. I think that Prime Minister, as he looked like he was lining up to be, until somebody got the hat pin in the balloon. But Prime Minister, I wouldn't want to answer what I thought he was worthy of Prime Minister, but Foreign Minister, which is an extremely important place to be in Britain's world right now, and obviously with the Britex. So no, I think he'll do very, very well, Jim, and I don't think he'll be a yes man for anybody. He'll be very much his own man, and only time's going to tell. But I think he will surprise a lot of these naysayers. I think there's been a lot of daggers drawn because of his position on Britex, but I think a lot of people are going to be surprised just how good he is going to work out. That's my personal opinion, listeners. That's what I feel.
Martyn, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you, Jim, and I look forward to another exciting couple of weeks. I talked to my friends that on Vitality, that little company that we've kept an eye on, the vitamin company that shouldn't really be a public company. It just happens to be a public company, and they went to the show back in Toronto. And I think it's always interesting to see non-resource deals in this marketplace that is so busy and so full at the junior level with these resource deals. So Well, hopefully we have more to talk about from these companies as the weeks go by, Jim. And thank you for allowing me on the show, and you know how much I enjoy being on.
Tally-ho.
Okay, old boy.
My guest has been Martyn Element, a Vancouver marketing and corporate advisor. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. You can forward questions to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.